these as well. So we are now broadcasting. We are recording. We're live on Facebook. Life is good. We're going to get some people coming in here. But welcome, everyone. It's Webinar Wednesday for August. Crazy. We're almost at the end of the year here. I feel like COVID has made the year go fast, Joe. But today we're joined by Joe Huber with Contractors Cloud. Great partner with Company Cam. Great integration that we have with their CRM. So we're joined by them today. And we're going to talk about how to define an ROI strategy. So as we let some people get in here, Joe, before we dive into the meat of the presentation, maybe just tell some people a little bit about your background, how you came to be with Contractors Cloud, and then as people start to fill in here, we'll get into the meat and potatoes of today's episode.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. Thank you for the great partnership with Company Cam, and we appreciate all that here at Contractors Cloud. So I actually started as a contractor in the industry in the late 90s, 96, 97. So I'm kind of a dinosaur, been around a long time. I won't disclose my age, but you can kind of do the numbers, of course. And, the CRM world started, halfway through my career roughly. So I have good experience in both, paper files, notebooks, Post-it notes in my pickup truck to running everything, fully integrated with a CRM and going digital. So I have all that experience before I came to Contractors Cloud a couple of years ago. So that's kind of how I ended up here. Good friends with the founder. He and I just have a lot of the same vision and alignments as far as, how business is conducted and all of that. So that's kind of what brought us together. And I use my experience here at Contractors Cloud to, help our customers get the most out of our system.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that unique perspective that you're going to be able to bring to the table of, both having contracting background and then now being in the CRM world, I think there's a lot of value there with that perspective. And I love the fact that you refer to yourself as a dinosaur, because I won't call you a dinosaur, but I think that, that's often one of the really scary things with contractors, especially when they're going into technology. I haven't heard the content yet, but I'm going to guess that technology plays a large role in an ROI strategy. And so if you want to go ahead and share your screen and share the wonderful information that you've prepared for us.
I will do my best, and thanks for not referring to me as a dinosaur. I'll do it myself, no problem. I appreciate it.
Well, if you didn't get the screen shared in about 30 seconds, I was going to have to make a joke about you being a dinosaur, but you got it.
I got it figured out, Michael.
Absolutely. A few housekeeping items in this view for those of you joining us. Chat is a place where you can talk, communicate. It's a lot more difficult for Joe or myself to sift through chat for questions. Zoom Webinar does a great job of showing questions, though, in the Q&A portion. So if you do have a question for Joe or myself on anything, type that there. I will make sure that I get those asked of Joe. And then if I have a question, Joe, I might just interrupt you and ask a question as well. So I'm going to flip the stage to you, and you've got control of the slides. So go ahead and fire away here.
Sounds good. Yeah, and thank you for that. I mean, a good conversation is always better than just a straight-on presentation. So any questions at all that come in or anything from you at all, Michael, just let me know. So, calculating ROI, I look at it as more of a strategy, and that's reflected in the title here of it's not, giving a formula of plugging in numbers and doing this or that. We're going to talk more of an overall strategy. So introductions, obviously, those are already done. So I start with how do you as a contractor define ROI? Is it how many users you have, how much you're being charged, and that in relationship with how much time you think you're saving. So and there's nothing wrong with that strategy if that's what it is. Is it jobs sold? Is it increased, productivity and efficiency? Those are some broad brush type analogies and calculations, quote unquote, that you can use to try to figure out. But I really want to kind of take a little deeper dive at that and go beyond the minutes. CRMs are going to save you time. There's no question. They're going to do that. But what do you do with that time? How do you utilize that time within your company to really get a return, to really get an ROI on what you're trying to accomplish? And I revolve all that around happy customers. I look at, setting up your processes and everything in place to result in that happy customer. So that's really what I'm going to focus on throughout this whole thing. Some of the myths and other considerations, some I've already mentioned, like I said, that, every CRM is going to say you're going to be more efficient, you're going to be more productive, and you're going to sell more. And they're going to give you numbers of an example of how much money you're going to add to your bottom line. And that's all great. And that's all going to happen. But how do you quantify that? How do you really get those numbers? And that's where I say, don't really worry about the quantifying of that calculation. Worry more about the end result of happy customers, because in the end, that's going to put money in your bottom line regardless. So, is the value your software really delivering? It seems like it should be, an easy question to answer, right? Productivity, hours, the rates, you multiply them. This is how much time I'm saving. This is how much money I have in my pocket. What really matters? The happy customer, the end result. Your CRM should be set up to really provide that process to keep your project team members all on task, all on point, knowing what they're contributing to the process to result in a happy customer. Sometimes they don't understand that. Sometimes they don't think their roles are important. The CRM can help tie all of that together into your workflow, into the project team cohesiveness to make sure that you're attaining your goal. The extra hours, yes, okay, you're going to save that time, but what gets done with those minutes? And I'm going to break this up into some different divisions and departments here in a minute, but looking at those saved minutes, making sure they're not wasted. Just saving time is great, but what can you really do with that extra time that you do have throughout your company, top to bottom? So that's that last question. Does your software CRM help get the most out of those saved hours?
For you, Joe, going back to your days as a contractor, was the decision to jump into, having a CRM and using technology to help create ROI in your business, was that a no-brainer, or was that something that, maybe was a slow transition for you? And, at first you're like, man, these Post-it notes in my truck have been pretty darn successful for me. I can't imagine that technology is going to make this any more efficient or save me any time or create that happy customer. How was that transition for you as a contractor?
That was a very, very hard transition. I was definitely set in my ways. Yeah, the old job jacket, the folder, having all of your information right there, having it in your truck with you at all times, transitioning to the office and having those folders. What I did is just basically boxes were my stages. They were my workflow, and that folder moved from box to box. A lot of guys use whiteboards, magnets, all that same concept, and that all works, and it does, and a lot of guys are very successful with it. But where I saw the biggest improvements was, communication, everybody knowing what's going on, documentation, all the files and the same stuff, all of your general basic stuff that you're going to see with a CRM, but taking it a step further, and where I really started to see the added benefit was the project team being on task, being on point, being held accountable, and setting out that goal, having that happy customer be the ultimate goal, not just let's get this job done real quick. So it was a difficult transition, Michael, I will admit. And it took my sales staff, quite a bit of time to make that transition as well. But in the end, totally worth it. I mean, it transformed how we ran the company. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that's such an important distinction, because anytime that you're changing something in your business, especially if you're changing the amount of technology that you're using. So I don't care where you're at on the spectrum of 100% paper pen to 99.9% digital. If you're not 100% digital, any change is a difficult decision to make, but it's not, it doesn't mean that, hey, what you're doing doesn't work. By going and adding technology into your business, it's saying, hey, this can make what we're currently doing better. And I think that's a huge distinction for contractors watching this to keep in mind. It's, by getting a CRM or adding in company cam or adding in a sumo quote type technology,
Mhm.
That doesn't mean what you were previously doing was bad. It just means it can be more efficient this way. Let technology do some of the work, um,
Absolutely.
those kind of things. So sorry for interrupting with the question. I'll let you jump back into
Yeah,
your
no,
strategy
no,
about
thank
happy
you.
customers.
Thank you. Not a problem at all. So, of course, my first point on here is, budget does matter. I don't want to sound like, it doesn't matter what these things cost or what system you're going to use, what integrations you're going to have. Of course, your budget matters. No one's ever going to tell you, or they shouldn't be telling you that, you have to have a CRM or you have to have this or that, and not know, and knowing that you can't afford it. So you have to take that into account, of course. But when you revolve everything around your overall strategy of that happy customer, you don't need to be as focused on what is my savings, what is my return every week on how much time we saved. Because when you follow that repeatable, perfectible workflow, that process that CRM is going to help you, the return's going to be there. The money's going to be there in the end. You don't really need to focus on it. It just happens. And I know that sounds kind of cheesy, but that's a philosophy that I've always gone by. And it holds true. So a long time ago, a good friend of mine, and I'm sure some of you have heard this analogy, but he would always say, every business is like a three-legged stool. So the three aspects of our industry: sales, admin, production. You pull one leg out, the stool's going to tip over. So you could be at the bar sitting on that stool and you're not even intoxicated. You pull the leg, you're going to fall, right? You need all three of them. Many arguments I've heard, and people talk about which one's more important. To me, they're all equally important. You can't do anything until something's sold. You can't build this until that's done. You can't, it all evolves around. So I'm going to dive into each one of these aspects and look a little bit more at how they can help define that ROI, how they can contribute to that strategy by utilizing those saved minutes. So sales, first and foremost, you have your leads are organized. You have your calendars, your integrations as far as what their schedule is, their templated estimates, their workflows, their synced email follow-ups, all of that. That's all going to contribute to your salesperson having more time. So do we want that salesperson to just punch out early and not do anything with it? Well, of course not. We want them focusing on their follow-ups. We want them generating more business, more time for prospecting, more time asking for referrals. What else can they do? Stop by their job. They can visit with their customer, that customer interaction. So we don't want to focus on just, hey, salesperson, this is going to save you time. And you're just going to have more time in your day and you can just leave early. We want to focus on how can we take that time to make that customer happy. Accountability is huge, obviously, in any CRM. Having the ability to monitor who's doing what, at what time of the day are they doing it, how much time are they spending on that file. That, again, is all monitoring those minutes and having the ability to do that. Now, there's a fine line with taking that too far, of course. Nobody wants to be micromanaged. So you got to kind of balance that out a little bit. You don't want to be a complete dictator and manage every minute of a salesperson's day. That's just going to be counterproductive. So, but the other things they can do to kind of go that extra mile, I said, stopping at the job, following up with their prospects, having the time to convey details to production. I put this on the sales one because it is kind of on their responsibility, right? They're the ones meeting the customer. They're the ones selling the job, whether it's a retail job or an insurance claim. They know the details. Well, back in the day, that might have been the Post-it note, or that might have been the voicemail. Then came texting. That's how much of a dinosaur I am, Michael. So when we were able to then text details to each other, that was a big deal. But now it's all in there. It's all in your hand. You're using your CRMs mobilely, and you're putting that information in there. And we'll talk about that more when we get to the production aspect. But all of those details are going to contribute to that customer having a good experience.
I think my favorite piece there is when you're talking about how to utilize that time savings that you're going to get from implementing technology in your company, and how important it is to spend time on the relationships with customers that you've maybe even already inked the deal. And
Absolutely.
it's probably an immeasurable ROI in some aspects, but how important it is to make sure that customer has a great experience. And it's so valuable that you spend that little extra time putting in the work to build the relationship with your customer. And I think that oftentimes contractors, even if they're utilizing technology really well, your sales guys, instead of spending that extra time on deals they've already inked, they're going out and trying to ink more deals. And what they don't realize is having happy customers is just going to lead to more deals. And so it's like, hey, put the time in, build the relationships, make sure your customers are satisfied, make sure your production team's working well together. So I think I love this slide and how to utilize, that extra time. So I'll let you jump back in and talk about production here.
So yeah, moving to the next leg of the stool is, a lot of times what I've witnessed is production guys they kind of underestimate themselves. They undervalue themselves. They know they're good at what they do. They're a different mindset than the salespeople. That's why they're in that role. And they don't really understand sometimes, and some do, of course, but the impact that they can have on the customer experience. So when they can send orders quickly, when they can go through an estimate to a work order, to a material order and a labor order, all in one spot, all within their CRM, and look at that saves them a ton of time. They're looking at photos. Sales rep is out in the field, and company cam file is loaded with pictures, notes, and tags, and all kinds of stuff that are then in their CRM or just on their company cam file. They can look at all that stuff. So that connection, I mean, it's just a no-brainer as far as that goes. They are saving time of asking questions, tracking down the salesperson, trying to figure out, hey, what are we doing in this situation? What are we doing with this chimney? All of those types of questions that can simply be solved by a photo. But what they don't get is, with that extra time, then they can really help contribute to that customer experience by sending out an invite to them. Hey, your job is scheduled. Here's my contact information. They have all that information accessible to them right there within their CRM. You make it part of your workflow, that your production people get involved. Let them know. It doesn't have to be a continued conversation or a shift of responsibility if your salespeople are the ones that are the direct responsibility role. It doesn't have to be that, but they can just interject a little bit here and there. So I encourage that you teach your production staff to utilize that experience, utilize that extra time that they're going to have. And they're busy. They're always busy. Production guys, if you guys are cranking through a storm or just in a really busy year and all that, they're always going to have something to do. But work it within your workflow where they're getting tasks or emails to just set out a reminder to let their customers know that, hey, you're in good hands. I'm on your project. Here's when we're going to be there. Utilize the photos, send them progress photos of, as the job is going and all that type of stuff. So they can definitely do that. So I touched on most of that already, the communication, pictures, it goes a long ways. So, and then the communication internally, just between the sales, the admin, and production is going to help with that communication of knowing exactly what needs to be done on that job. And they're going to have a ton of extra time to help with that. So having good information, I'll just tell a quick story, can save thousands. And having those pictures, having the correct addresses, having the extra time to double check every job can save you from having to redo a roof from a wrong address. And I'm speaking from experience. I have done it. And that was pre-CRM, that was pre having that extra time. It was just turn and burn where you're just, blasting out roofs and flying through folders, and mistakes happen. And had a production manager had the time to double check the address, send pictures with the work order to the crew, it would have saved me, $8,000 of installing the wrong roof. So that kind of stuff does happen, and that can very easily be avoided with those extra minutes that you're going to save.
I would say that I'm not a contractor, Joe, but I'm going to guess that everybody watching this has either had that happen, or they're sitting there saying to themselves, how on earth could someone do that? And I'm guessing that until you have it happen, everyone's in the mindset of, no way that could happen. Like, how on earth could that happen? And then it happens to you. And I think that, that I love that example, because I've heard that. I've heard wrong colors, wrong houses, just all sorts of things that it's like, man, we could never do that. And then next thing you know, it happens. So I think there's a ton of truth to that statement.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It can happen. It does happen. Having the time to double check all your stuff and having it all in one spot definitely helps avoid that situation. For me, it was just a simple, north and south designation on the address itself. The crew went to 405 north, they should have went to 405 south. So it was chicken scratch, handwritten paper, and that can all have been avoided. Have someone had the time to double check all that. So
Absolutely.
yeah. So it does happen, believe it or not. So the admin, the third leg of the stool, I always consider them the glue. They're the glue that holds everything together, right? They're the ones kind of behind the scenes, making sure that this stuff goes smoothly. So they would be an integral part in creating your workflow. And I know we've talked about that several times, but most CRMs out there have some form of a workflow, whether it be a basic formulation or more of a customized, fully automated form of it. But I encourage you to really put a lot of thought into that, because that's really what is going to help you utilize all these minutes across all three branches of your company, and design it all around that goal. Design it, whatever that goal may be. Maybe it's not happy customers for you. Maybe it's a different factor, a different thing that you want to quantify. But utilizing it that way and building all of your steps and procedures around that, making it repeatable and perfectible. It's never going to be perfect. You definitely want it to be repeatable, so you can just work towards making it perfect and tweaking it and changing it as you go. So the admin should be there behind the scenes, kind of making sure that workflow, is functioning at the highest level possible. And if they're utilizing a CRM, if they're utilizing all of the steps and things within that, they have the time to do that. So again, saving those minutes, not just doing nothing with them, but actually focusing on that workflow, focusing on those processes to make sure that everything is running as optimal as possible. So customer updates, staff communication, job notes and changes, automatic notification between departments. It's another thing that you really want to make sure that your workflow can do that for you. So as that job moves through the process, everyone's getting notified of the next step. Like I referred to with the production person, they can simply get an email or a task to let them know, hey, you're on the spot now. Call the customer, let them know what's up, let them know the schedule. All those little touches, the more the better. The more the better with the customer and creating that experience. So one mistake, we touched on this already: wrong caller, no return phone calls, missing appointments. CRM can help with all of that, of course. You can lose jobs very easily just by being late to an appointment, something that you really obviously don't want to do. So one last thing the admin staff can do is, assist the other. They can assist your sales force with, follow up with thank you cards, setting up referral programs. Surveys are huge. You can do that third party. You can integrate your CRMs with third party survey companies. You can do it in-house. But valuable information that if you talk to most contractors out there, they say they don't have time for surveys. They just don't have time. They would love to do them, but they don't have the time for that. And that's unfortunate. And hopefully a CRM could help them save those minutes, save those hours, so they could incorporate a survey program. Very powerful in the sales world as far as having that data to support how your company performs.
I think an important thing to note here is how you're talking about using your technology to help keep your admin informed without having to call them every step of the way and say, hey, we just finished doing this. Hey, we just did this. Because at the end of the day, the person fielding the phone call from the client is generally going to be your admin. And it just leads to internal frustration if they have no clue what's going on. It's not good for the client for them to say, you know what, I really don't have a clue. Let me try to get a hold of Joe out in the field.
Yep.
Joe's working, he's roofing, he's not answering his phone. And so, utilizing technology to keep everybody at least mostly in the know of what's going on is so valuable. And so I love that point on the admin thing. So I'll let you tell us how to put it all together here.
So like we've kind of focused on a little bit here, technology is great, but how to utilize it? It's going to make everybody's life within your company easier. It's going to make things simpler. Putting all that data, avoiding paperwork and all of that, that's all a no-brainer. But utilizing it to create the process to create happy customers, that's what really takes it one step further. It takes it above and beyond just, okay, now we've taken a step up in technology. We're getting our communication and all of that. Take it that step further. Look at the intangibles. Look at your customer interactions. Keep that communication up. That's what customers want. They really do. Even through this year and talking with our customers here at Contractors Cloud through this whole COVID pandemic, having that extra communication has been huge. We don't have that personal communication as much. So just the text messaging, the emails, the phone calls goes a long way. And that doesn't need to stop once this is all over. I think people are going to embrace that both at the personal level and, just through their communication. Unified team effort with the workflow. So that really, keeping that accountability across the board of making sure that everybody's utilizing that time saved to really focus on the end result, focus on what their part of that workflow is, making sure that they follow that day to day, and the return will come. If the process is followed, the return will come. And in my opinion, in my strategy, what I looked at was happy customers. I know I've repeated that many times, but in the end, to me, that's what it's all about. To me, that's what's going to drive your business to grow and prosper. As long as you're running all your other processes as far as estimating and job costing and all of that, the profit's going to be there. If you're missing the mark somewhere along the lines there, your CRM is going to help you with that as well. So just having a CRM isn't going to automatically put more money to the bottom line. That's up to you and how much you get out of it. But I would really encourage, trying to calculate, trying to quantify that ROI on something other than just how many hours or minutes you save, and even how much, your bottom line went up. Because it is a hard thing to quantify, in my opinion. And that's what kind of started this thought process of this conversation was, to me, it's just more than plugging in how many users you have, how much it costs a month, and kind of looking at it that way. So I hope I've made a good point of giving you a different perspective and maybe looking beyond that and looking at the process and all of that. So I believe you could do a pre-CRM and a post-CRM comparison to say, okay, here's what we did before we used a system. Here's what we did after. Obviously, there's a lot of external factors. To have a really good comparison, you'd have to have an apples to apples year, 1 year to the next year with no influences such as hailstorms or anything like that. But I believe you could look at it that way to see, okay, we've really taken this extra time that we've saved and focused on that process, and here's our result. So, but in the end, it's all up to the company. It's all up to the company how much they utilize it, how much they put into it, and how much effort they want to spend.
Absolutely. And I think that's very true with all technology. So perfect. We're at the point of Q&A. So if you guys have questions, drop those in chat or in the Q&A section of the webinar. If you want to get in touch with Joe or myself, obviously there's our emails. Like I mentioned early on, Company Cam and Contractors Cloud are integrated. Another area where, I would say that's more, that integration piece is happy workforce. I mean, obviously there's some value to, having them integrated and having happy clients, but there's ROI to having a happy workforce as well. And, eliminating duplicate work for your team or work that they see as, why on earth, Joe, are you making me do this again? I already took the photos in Company Cam. Why do you want me to now push them into Contractors Cloud? So having those integrations, I think, help, and you'll see an ROI with, happy workforce, those kind of things. One question I have for you, Joe, and I would love to get your contractor perspective, and then now that you're with Contractors Cloud, I hear all the time, man, your software looks amazing, but I don't think I can get my guys to change their process. I don't think that I can get them, won over on doing it this way. How important is it to train your team when you do bring in new technology and new things to really, for them to see the value in it? Because, we've all gotten a new smartphone or a new television or something new, and it was different than the way we had before. And we said that first day, man, that was the worst decision I ever made in my life. Why on earth did I upgrade to a smartphone? I don't know how to work it. It's terrible. So we've all been there. What advice do you have for contractors on training their team so that your team feels comfortable with the technology?
Sure. Yeah, that is definitely a tough hurdle. I hear it a lot. I've experienced it myself. And I would say, part of it is going to be, what platform, what CRM you choose. Because if you're really changing your process and changing the way you operate, that's going to be a bigger change than if you have something that's maybe a little more customizable, something that you can kind of build around how you operate, and not being, forced into a different process. That makes a big difference. Guys are going to be more apt to, okay, here's the steps we take as a company right now already. Here's the program that we're signing on with, guys. Your world is changing. Sorry, we're gonna do this, with or without you. And here, but good news is, all of our process is the same. Everything you guys do is going to be the same as far as 1, 2, 3, 4. Turn your contract in, done. You have to teach them how to upload. You're going to teach them how to have to navigate the system. So customer service and training, that goes into, picking the right CRM that's right for you. Do you need something very simple that you can self-learn yourself? That might be perfect. Do you need something that you need a ton of customer support, and more detailed onboarding to make sure that your process matches exactly how you operate? Great question. Thank you. Because really that's a lot of what I do every day, is use my experience to help customers, create those processes and really create customize the CRM to flow with what they're used to kind of take a little bit off the learning curve. It's still steep no matter what CRM you're using. It's still going to be there, and change is always scary. But that would be my advice, is to research and really make sure that you are selecting the right one. So when it's time for that transition, your sales guys in particular, maybe don't feel like they're getting whacked upside the head quite as hard. So, because it is a change for them, and they will push back typically. So,
Yeah, Company Cam is probably one of the more out of the box technology solutions you're going to find, and you're still going to get pushback. So,
right.
That's going to happen. How important is it from a decision maker standpoint? I won't even say owner, because a lot of companies that are good size, they're having their production, guys in charge of production or guy in charge of sales, they're actually the ones bringing on the technology. How important is it for them, the decision maker, to be an expert in the technology that they're bringing, that they're unrolling? Because a lot of times I personally feel like a lot of the pushback can be simply solved if as the guy making the decision, why are we doing this? Well, this is why. This is how it works. This is why there's not a headache. Do you see that same thing with your experience with contractors, the decision makers that truly understand the technology, it works that much better?
It makes a big difference. Obviously, you can't expect your company to buy in if you don't buy in yourself. So you really need to understand what it is you're looking for and make sure that CRM solves that problem for you. And then once you've made that decision, the numbers all work. You know that you're going to get your ROI out of whatever selection you've made. You do need to learn it. We strongly encourage here that every company have at least one admin person, and it's typically not the owner. They're busy doing their things. They're involved in the training. They go from start to finish through the whole thing. But whoever those decision makers are really need to have their heads wrapped around how this system works. Because you're right, Michael. If they get a question and they don't know the answer, and again, the buy-in's not there. If a salesperson or production person goes to that general manager and says, "Hey, I'm digging the new software. Okay, I'm getting it, but I don't understand this part here," or "Why do we have to do this?" And that GM can very thoroughly explain the philosophy behind why they chose this program and exactly how that problem is solved, or how that person needs to do that particular thing. It helps the transition so much easier. Just makes it so smooth.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to give a shout out. So I was playing golf with one of Company Cam's clients here this last weekend, and the owner and then his head of commercial sales were in the foursome. And the owner's dead set on Company Cam, absolutely loves Company Cam, talks Company Cam up. And it was amazing because unsolicited, when the head of commercial, I didn't know the guy that runs the commercial sales portion. When he figured out I was with Company Cam, he's like, "Holy cow, you've made our lives so much easier, your tool." And it was great to see that not only was the owner on board and understood Company Cam and the value of it, but he had done a good job passing that value down through his company so that everyone could see it and know, why are we doing these things? And so I think that, kind of tie all this up, unless we get a straggler question, you're talking about ROI and where do we get ROI, and happy customers, happy employees, obviously time savings, there's ROI to it, but then how am I, reinvesting that time to get more out of my team and what we're doing? I think it all comes down to, education, teaching your team, making sure that they understand, why are we doing these things? Why is it so important that we put these things into our CRM, or why is it so important that we take these photos? When they understand the why and what they can do once the why is met, your team's going to be that much more powerful. So,
absolutely.
Last quick chance for questions from the audience. If not, Joe, definitely appreciate you jumping on with us today. Great content there. We do have one final question, comes in at the buzzer. Can you explain a little how the integration between Contractor Cloud and Company Cam works? I can take that question, or if you want to go with it, you can.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and then I'll just take a stab at it, and you can add into it.
Okay.
But I think the easiest thing to think about here is eliminating duplicate work and eliminating duplicate entry. So basically what happens is, when something's done, a job's created in Contractors Cloud, apologies, Joe, if job's not the right word, but when a file's created in Contractors Cloud, it's going to create that same project in Company Cam. And then when your team gets to a job and they start taking pictures, they start making notes, it's automatically going to push that information back into Contractors Cloud. So you've now eliminated that duplicate entry of, hey, we're taking the photos. We don't have to upload. We don't have to send. We don't have to attach them to anything else. They're now available in our source of record, which is our CRM, Contractors Cloud. So that's kind of a high level of it. I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that, Joe.
No, that is very true. That, making that connection, the guys can geolocate on the spot, take their photos, it syncs up, and everything's in one location within Contractors Cloud. So makes it very simple, very easy for them. Of course, there's other things they can do with their photos within Company Cam app, which is also very awesome, as far as the tags and the annotations and all of that. So you get a lot of added benefit and a lot of added value with that as well. So helping your production team conveying those messages from sales to production, that can all be done simply within their app, and then it's just syncing over into ours.
Absolutely. Quick follow-up on that. I'll let you go first here, Joe, and then I will add to it. What's the best way to sign up for Contractors Cloud? Is that to just email you, go online?
You can do either or. Of course, we have all of our contact form and everything within Contractors Cloud website. So you can go on there, click on, want to learn more. You can sign up for a demo right then and there. You can schedule it that way, or just shoot me an email, get the conversation started. And, that's where it all begins, really, is seeing if we're a good fit for those prospects.
Absolutely. And Company Cam will be that same way. I would say you're better off the big old URL at the bottom of your screen, companycam.com/webinars. You can start your trial of Company Cam right there. That's going to be the best way. But I would be more than happy if you emailed me directly to help get you your trial started and get you to the proper people that can help really train you on Company Cam. And then as far as integration, either or Company Cam or Contractors Cloud, we work very closely together. We're going to help make sure that you get that integrated. It's not a difficult process. We've got a lot of good tutorials, video tutorials on how to do it. Super easy. So you can reach out to anyone at Company Cam or at Contractors Cloud, and we can help get that done. So
absolutely.
I think, unless we have another buzzer beater question here, I think that's the questions. Joe, huge thanks for you jumping on with us today. If you are just joining us here or you joined us late, you'll be able to catch the full webinar. We'll have that online. That will also be at companycam.com/webinars. You can check out any of our other webinars there as well. So Joe, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. And we will see you guys all next month for Webinar Wednesday.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Michael.